Anyway, maybe I'll start with Katie, actually, because we've worked together a little bit in the past, because you're also a consultant, right, for a number of different companies. And one of the things I remember most about you when we first started working was the first thing you did when you came in and you were working on a campaign for one of our clients, you said, I'm going to make this activity look as least like a newsletter as possible, right? And you had a process for doing that. So what was going on there? What was your rationale? What were you thinking?
So picture this. You're at work, you use Outlook at your office, you're subscribed to your newsletters on Gmail, and you have this brand that you absolutely love, and you are maybe one of their top customers, and you're sitting there, and that day they launch a sale. And it's a couple weeks down the line, crazy busy, your social life, your work life, and you go into your promotions inbox and you see that you missed this sale from this brand. Now, picture that day goes differently. You're sitting there, you're at work, your phone buzzes, and you have an email coming from Dave in customer service, who is someone, because you're one of the top customers, you've spoken to Dave before, you know Dave, and he's saying, hey, because you're one of our top customers, we wanted to invite you to shop the sale before everyone else. The way that you will react to that email is going to be vastly different. I mean, one, you actually totally missed the sale. And even if you did end up seeing it, it's this designed email that went out to everybody, and it's just got this big 50% off splash on it. So a strategy that I bring to a lot of my clients is learning how and when to speak to them as if you are a person. So it started off when I was working for Oliver Brown, and I was looking at what their CRM strategy should be, and I looked at what made their loyal customers loyal to begin with, and I realized it was their relationship to customer service. But the company was growing, they were getting a lot more customers, and there was no way to have that one-on-one communication. So I sat down with the team and we designed a series of emails that were plain text, not coming from the company, but coming from person's name at the company, and communicating to each segment in a way that related to them, because you're our best customer, because we haven't seen you in a while, and we provided an offer for them. It's something that should be used sparingly, because otherwise it comes across really spammy, and this is something that a lot of retailers don't get, because what you see when you send this type of email is most of you who probably work in B2C retail might see your open rates anywhere between 20 to 25%, your click-through rates between 3 to 5%, those are generally the averages. When you send one of these, they shoot up between 35 to, I've even seen 60% in your open rates. Your click-through rates, your conversion rates, everything goes through the roof, and you think, wow, this is amazing, and you make that decision to suddenly send them all the time, and then your top customers are sitting there being like, leave me alone, get out of my inbox, where my aunt is emailing me about my birthday, but suddenly there's this company who's trying to sell me. So it's something that you can use really sparingly, but what you don't realize is that the customers actually really appreciate that. If they're someone who's loyal to you, they want to be spoken to personally, and they want to get a heads up on your sales or your new collections before everybody else. Okay. So that's sort of...
So cutting through the noise, that's a challenge, right?
Yes.
The noise, the clutter, email newsletters coming in, 2-3 times a week. So the challenge,
And one thing that you'll notice is most B2C retailers, the majority of your database are Gmail users, so the promotional inbox is where a lot of your newsletters are going. And the largest reason for that is the image to text ratio. So what actually moves it from the promotional inbox into the actual inbox is doing something that's plain text. And
Sure. Okay. So maybe I could ask you guys, maybe start with Jonathan. So what are you currently doing? I mean, you touched that in your talk about the lifecycle marketing. In terms of sending a newsletter, sending a batch and blast, are you doing a lot of segmentation? And how do you cut through the noise? What's your strategy?
Yeah, so we look at segmentation from type of customer group. So we also have trade customers as well as consumer. Right. So that's one of the first steps. But actually touching on one of the questions I was asked earlier, the VIP segment is something we have to treat very differently. And touching on what was said earlier, it's not about hitting them all the time with messaging, it's about actually pulling back a little bit and letting these messages go out less frequently but more relevant. So that's where we also look at a lot of segmentation. Things we also look at are obviously location, we do that differently. We might target someone, different timings obviously for segmentation and location. We don't want to send something out to someone that arrives at sort of 2 a.m. Although saying that, we do get some customers that shop that late, so it's not always a bad thing. But yeah, really about trying to make sure you're looking at the customer in different groups. So our trade customers don't need to see emails every week. They're not going to be making purchases every week. Sure. They can go out once every couple of months. And the VIPs is really when either we've seen some action, so we can trigger something that works manually. But if we just send it out on a batch email, we'll try and make sure we pull back a little bit from that.
Okay. And Andrew?
Yeah, so we send a few emails a week. At least one will generally be a batch email, but then the other 2 or 3 will be, we'll segment. We do a lot of segmentation around where a customer either comes from or what type of product they would buy. If they only ever buy at discount, if we're running a discount or there's a certain product on sale, we'll send them a database of just customers who have bought on sale. And generally that open rate and conversion is at least a double of what it would normally be. We segment by brand, by category, and also location. If we're running a promotion in our store in London, we're not going to segment or blast an email out to North England or Europe or anything like that. So we'll segment just to London consumers. Otherwise, if you send irrelevant emails in this day and age, people are going to unsubscribe quicker than they're going to subscribe. So we are always constantly testing different segments and categories, but getting down to, firstly, segmentation has 100% worked for us.
Has not.
No, it has worked, yeah. So 2 weeks ago we ran, so it's a whole database. We segmented it. One was to customers who had bought on sale products, and then another section was to people who have bought multiple times of this particular brand. And both those emails had double and one had triple the open rates of normal emails. So we're going to be doing a lot more of those moving forward.
Okay, and how do you track how do you deal with the lack of? Because you'll have some people on your database that just don't open. They haven't opened for months, possibly since the beginning. So do you have a process for sort of cleaning those guys out? Do you survey them, say, do you want to receive this or not? Do you take them out of the database? Or do you just keep them? Because there are 2 schools of thought. Keep sending them or clean it up.
The moment we keep sending them, we are in the process of looking at cleansing our email database. We have just started also sending an email out, say on a Thursday night, and then on a Friday, say lunchtime, whoever hasn't opened that email will change the subject line, and you'll get another 10-20% of people open that email who potentially wouldn't have opened it in the first place. So that's a strategy which has been working for us. We've only done it the past 3 weeks, but it's again, certain times a day. Again, 7 p.m. sometimes works, and then 7 a.m. works for other people. So we're still constantly testing, but cleansing, I think at the moment as well, like the way email's going, email databases may be a lot smaller, but I think people who do sign up to your email address are genuinely interested in your information for at least the first few months, unless you start doing pretty irrelevant content to them.
Sure. And Katie, I guess you've worked with quite a few retailers, and you've seen different strategies. How do you think, where do you think the email newsletter is going in terms of how much more targeted is it going to become? Where are we headed in terms of the sort of personalization? Is it going to be a sort of email of one eventually? Is that where is that possible?
I think that one thing that Andrew touched on in terms of frequency of email is something that I'm seeing a lot of retailers wanting to address. Not just segmenting to people to be able to personalize things, but also to be able to limit the frequency so they're not hitting them when they don't want to be hit, and therefore reducing their unsubscribes. So being able to understand that if you send me an email every day and I haven't opened them for 2 weeks, maybe you drop that down to sending 3 a week. And if I start to re-engage and read every 3, then you start picking it up. And that's the sort of way that I see automation going. In terms of personalization, I think that we're going to see a huge lift in understanding how to personalize imagery, not just in terms of recommended products, but I think that there's going to be a lot more being done in the future in terms of not just personalizing the first name and whether they're an active or VIP or lapsed or what they previously bought or what size they wear, but actually being able to show them visuals that are a lot more relating to them.
Mm-hmm. And Jonathan, do you sync the newsletter activity with other the other touch points with social and so on? Is there quite a lot of connectivity between those two activities?
We're trying to at the moment. We don't do it as well as we should because we've not got it automated. So we're still having to do that quite manually. But our goal is to get to the email of one. We would like to be able to get to that place. Like I said earlier in my talk, trying to get to a very personalised shopping experience we think is going to bring us a lot of value because we target such a high-end demographic that they want that one-to-one relationship. So if we can deliver that by email, then great. Obviously, if they want to do it by phone or by text or WhatsApp or whatever, we'll do that as well.
Right.
So if we can get the email to work in that one-to-one way, which is, touch on what Katie said about this, it could be the style they get. They might like only products that are black and gold, so we don't want to send them something that's yellow. So we want to make sure that we try and personalise it in every way possible because there's so many different factors that they can take into consideration. But touching on to how we connect it, a lot of the time it just goes back into a sort of general CRM. So if we know someone uses social and they like certain images, if it's someone we've got some indication of who they are, we can't do it with everyone yet because we can't find a way to automate it. But if we can see that this person likes all of our images that are of the new sort of country style collection, then we'll feed that back into our system. So hopefully next time there's an email about that, we make sure they get that. So yeah, we try and do that.
And Andrew, how close are you, do you think, to being able to totally personalise? You know, how far away are you?
Because it comes down to resource at the moment, but in terms of totally personalising, I think we're a little bit away off that. I think, you know, on a high level, it's a segmentation, which we do. We try and get that as granular as possible, whether it's, you know, multiple purchases or one purchase or where they're located. But we're trialing whether it's like if the weather's going to be a bit, you know, cold this weekend, we'll tailor the email to certain cities and send it to people in those certain cities. It might be warmer jackets. If it's going to be sunny in London,
Sounds like a lot of work, though. Is it quite a lot of resource sort of?
Yeah.
Because you can. Someone talked earlier about size of database, and you can spend a lot of time doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, tools like us and other tools, you can segment sort of more or less. But even so,
you
it's
can.
sort of.
So there's technology out there which you can implement to do that automatically. That can be quite expensive. I guess before we go down that route of actually implementing that, we're going to test to see actually is it going to make a difference at all? So we don't do it every single week, but we try it at least once a month. Different segmentations and different ideas to see if it is going to work. And if it does pay off in the bottom line, then we can look to actually implement software or technology to do that.
Sure. So I want to explore a little bit about what's in the newsletters, right? So, I mean, newsletter in a funny sort of way is a misnomer. There's a bit of news in some of them, but a lot of them have no news at all, certainly not a letter. So, you know, so in your experience, having worked, as I say, with a few reasons, what sort of content do you think works best in the current format of, quote unquote, the new email newsletter?
So I think that really depends on the message that you have to say. And I think what happens with a lot of brands is you find yourselves planning your brand stories early on into the season, and season after season, it's sort of the same stories and the images that you've shot for that campaign. You plan those out. But really when it comes down to it, it's what are you trying to say and what is the best way to say it? So talking about if you want to say, look, this is a dress or a pair of shoes, we have it in 8 colorways. A GIF is the best way to go. You're showing the exact same image. You don't want to see all of them there. You have a GIF, it changes. It's very easy. The person doesn't have to scroll down to see the same photo several times. If you want to talk about how something's made, where it's produced, perhaps a video is better for that. You can actually show the processes. And when it comes to a sale, I do like the plain text one because you really, what you're hooking me on is not how nice everything looks. I just know there's a sale and therefore I want to go and see what's in this sale, and you've intrigued me enough to go take a look. So I think the content really depends a lot on what it is you're trying to say, and I think a lot of retailers forget that. And they think too much from a company perspective and their assets at hand rather than thinking, what are these stories and how should we tell them?
Okay. And Jonathan, tell us a bit about the content and how it changes.
We do 2 different types of emails generally. We'll have one product related and then we'll have one on a Sunday, which is editorial. And we've always done the editorial email. Our view was, we want someone to engage with the content that we write, the editorial, the storytelling in the way they would a Sunday newspaper. But for us, it's visual. Everything's visual. Even with the fact that we sell hundreds of brands, customers don't necessarily always shop by brand for home. So if you've got a certain look in your home, it doesn't matter what brand's got a product. If it doesn't go visually, it doesn't work. So we have to spend a lot of time and spending money on photography to sort of build that story. So we've actually got our own photo studio where we've got a set that we build and we actually curate these looks and try and sell these whole sort of encapsulating look. And that they definitely perform better to us than sort of necessarily a single product or even a brand-led one. So the things where we've curated a really good visual is obviously what's the most powerful for us. But like I said, editorial on a Sunday and product during the week.
And Andrew?
Actually pretty similar. So our Sunday newsletter is about brand building, so content, whether it's some editorial about something in the industry, a brand, something in London, for example, and our weekly emails are more about either a new collection that's just dropped or potentially, if we're running a sale, it'd be a sale item. But and I've seen a lot of brands, but globally, their emails are dropping just to one square and effectively driving people to a landing page. I think that's something that's very important, is that where the email could look nice, but doesn't take you to the destination almost of that image that they're clicking on, and that product isn't the first thing they see, people's attention spans these days are very short. They'll click straight off. So I think the landing page of where an email takes you to is as important as the email itself.
Sure. Okay. And I asked you, I know, to do a little bit of research. I'm not sure how many of you, I mean, I know, Katie, you did some research online and you guys talked to a few teenagers, but I mean, where is, are people going to be, Generation Z, right, or Z, or what they call screenagers, digital natives. My daughters are using email for homework, right? They don't look at any other emails. I've got to sort of message them if I want to talk to them. Is the email newsletter, the newsletter we currently send, is that how are we going to be able to adapt that to the kind of the younger generation as they grow up? The teenagers of today, the adults of tomorrow. What are they? How are we going to start with Katie? You've got some ideas, future gazing.
Yeah. So James was asking me about this, about what do teenagers think about the future of the e-commerce newsletter, and I said I don't know any teenagers finally at that age. And I did some research and I looked into it, and 68% of teenagers would prefer that they are spoken to via e-newsletter from brands versus other channels. And it was 72% of the generation above them, the millennials. So they're still finding it to be a useful method of communication. I think the challenge that brands have is I'm just past the Snapchat era in terms of where I'm at. I have friends who use it, but it's not a huge thing in my age group. But on my phone, I have Instagram, which now is Instagram Stories and Instagram Chat. I have WhatsApp. I have iMessage. I have Facebook Messenger. I have Facebook. I have all of these different apps, and I have 3 different email addresses that are active. So when it comes down to it, the biggest challenge is not necessarily getting attention in the inbox, but just getting them even to the inbox to try to get their attention in the inbox. We're seeing a huge split in people's attention spans across all of these different apps and platforms that are launching. And I think that's where the biggest challenge is, and I think that's where it's going to continue to be as Generation Z ages.
Yeah.
As Generation Z ages.
Digital natives, yeah. And
So
you
I
talked
asked a few people. I asked my office. I asked everyone there. Come and tell
They
me
all teenagers?
no teenagers. What you think the future of the newsletter will be, and I asked my 17-year-old brother who isn't a teenager. And I got some really straight. Most of the answers I got back from the office were personalization is key. It's all about that personal message. We'll only open emails that are really targeted to us. I also got people coming back saying, who knows, there might be VR and AR in the future and you never need a newsletter and you could just see all the products in front of you. So I was like, interesting. Don't know how we're going to work with that one. But my 17-year-old brother, who, if I email him today and say, hey, what are you doing? He would never reply. So I thought his answer would be, I just don't look at email. And interestingly, he come back and said, I use Snapchat and I use Instagram and I like that visual messaging, but when I want to come to do something transactional or I want to look for an offer from a brand I like, I'll go straight to my inbox. I was quite surprised by his answer. So I think there is definitely a future there for that. One thing he also pointed out was he doesn't believe in the crap personalization. That was his answer. He said, if you just put my name in it, I'm still not going to open it. He's got to have some product that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And I was quite impressed with what he said, to be honest, because I didn't even know he read email. So, yeah.
Well, Andrew has some very young children, I think, so probably not too young to ask them that question. And I don't know what comes after Generation Z. They're going to be Generation, I'll start at A again, maybe. Yeah. But have you managed to do a little bit of research?
I did, yeah. So I asked more so people in like early 20s. There's one particular, we're working with this quite big influencer, early 20s. I'll email him. he'll respond to my email on his WhatsApp. So I'm just like, okay, that's kind of fine, but is there any point in me emailing you? I think the story is going to have to be told on every single channel. I think email's still going to be around, and again, personalization. If I get an email with just my name and that's the personalization, I'm not really interested either, but it has to go a bit deeper than that. So I think people will maybe see an email, subject line, they may not open it, but then if they see that same type of content from Active in Style on their Instagram feed or on their Facebook feed, I think that will drive them to buy. So they need to see it across multiple channels at any given time. So it needs to tell the same story. But I think email unsubscribes will probably go up as people, if you're not giving them relevant content, they're going to stop opening them. Or we've already seen email open rates drop quite considerably over the past 10 years. But I think it needs to have similar messages and talk across all platforms. For us, one of the best performing channels is social media. But email is still, again, it's a relatively free marketing channel apart from the time it takes to design it, and also acquire email addresses can be quite expensive as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions from the audience? Anything you'd like to ask these guys about Yes. There's a couple in the front. We've got Sally and a lady behind. Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to ask for advice. What do you find is the best subject line? Are there certain words or any tricks you can share with us? Yeah. Thank you.
Katie?
Usually I find so all marketing is really about catering to the ego of the individual. I mean, that's why social media is so popular. It's not because I really love seeing photos of my friends. It's I love sharing photos of myself and getting likes. Most people generally like things that relate to them. So subject lines that I find that really work, I mean, back in the day, people used to use your first name in the subject line, and that came across as really spammy and fake, but just using the word your. So your recommendations, your invitation, your this, generally works really well. There's a huge school of thought between keeping it really short or keeping it really long. When it comes down to it, it has a lot more to do about the audience and the actual content of what you're trying to say that will get them to ultimately purchase, because you can get them to open, you can trick them into it, but you need them to purchase. And that has a lot more to do with your strategy as a business than what you're putting in the subject line. Yeah.
Any thoughts?
70% off. Always. It's always going to be the best, right? We don't actively do that, so we don't do a lot of discounting, but I can guarantee you if we did 70% off, that would definitely be our best open rate.
But spam filters.
Yeah, exactly. But again, the sort of that personalisation, giving someone a heads up that they might be seeing a collection before someone else. Like you get to see this first, so you're getting the first preview. That always works really well for us as well. Yeah,
likewise. The word new in or just dropped, anything that's new and people want to at least click through to see if there's anything that they haven't seen before that they like. I think it proves for us to be a lot more successful. But yeah, just same as what these guys said.
Yeah. Thank you.
And do you have a question?
Oh, sorry. One more thing. I did notice that, interestingly enough, versus Facebook ads, I was taking a look at data for a couple of companies, and one thing that didn't work is they really didn't like being told what to do in the subject line, like get this now or do this today. And that might have something to do with the fact that when you're going, this is completely hypothetical, but I would think that when I'm going through my email, I generally have a lot of work on, and I'm going through email for work purposes. So if a brand is telling me to do something, it just really stresses me out. Whereas on a channel like Facebook, if you say, try the new collection, do this, that it didn't have as much of a negative impact as I saw on email. There you go.
Andrew, you said that it costs you quite a lot of money to acquire emails. Do you purchase data? What do you do?
No, like say you run a competition.
Oh, okay.
You might do a collaboration with another brand. You might run a big event. We definitely don't purchase emails. But cost of acquisition might be 20p, a pound, £2, depending on what you might do. So emails generally don't come to you for free unless the on-site ones, which is great. But if you want to really grow quickly, generally you have to look at elsewhere, like competitions, which is a prize. It doesn't have to be expensive, but you aren't going to generally get tens of thousands of really good email addresses. If you're a fitness company, you win a car, you'll get loads of entries, but probably 2% will actually relate to what you do. So it's running something which relates to your brand.
Cool. A couple of questions. One here. And okay, let's start. And then, yeah. That's cool.
My question is, how do you balance more life cycle email, so sending the right email at the right time for the customer, for instance, when a customer is lapsing, and sending email at a time that is good for your business because you need to close the month and deliver sales, so you need to push a big promotion to everyone, or you have a huge collection that is a priority and you need to send your email as well to everyone. How do you balance this?
So there's a couple responses to that. One is generally I bake that into those promotions. So generally that's when I would address them as someone who's lapsing. So one thing you can do if you do have automated programs going on is you can pause those programs, and then for anybody who is in that lapsing category who would have received it during that time period, you send them a manual email that says, because we haven't seen you in a while for the lapsed category, we'd like to invite you to shop our sale, preview our collection, and whatever else it is. The other thing you can do, and this is something that I've been speaking to Metria about in terms of their system and the way that it's going, is they've actually started to build out a way for them to actually be an ESP as well, so that they will actually have full control over when you're sending your regular marketing campaigns versus when your automated ones are going on. And what that means for you as a retailer is you can actually have control to say, hey, don't send it to the people, or send the marketing campaign to the people who are supposed to receive this automated one, and delay the automated one until this day. And that's really huge in the industry, which will be a really helpful thing.
Thanks. You want to add anything? Or do you want to...
Yeah, we try to do the same. We try to pause people out of sort of bulk emails if they're in one of the segments, if we can. We try and get that right as much as possible. So if we know that someone is in our welcome series, we try not to send them the weekly emails. The caveat to that is we'll still send them the content one at the weekend, because we feel that that's useful to anyone regardless of whether they're in a purchase cycle or not, because it is content, it's editorial. It might be telling a story about some product or an interior of a sort of hotel that might use products they're interested in. But we generally try and keep people out of the segments of the life cycle.
Thank you.
So my question is this, like, it's not really an email question, more omni-channel approach. So you guys have all mentioned up there, you know, one-to-one conversations and personalization, but then you've also mentioned Facebook and WhatsApp and, you know, WeChat and all that stuff. As a retailer, have you guys ever thought about how you're going to market on those channels, like the messaging, like iMessage and WhatsApp and stuff like that? Have you
We spend a fair bit of time on Facebook. WhatsApp, we haven't. I think there's marketing power behind that. We haven't used WhatsApp from a mass channel. But Facebook, they're using tone of voice on Facebook and trialing different call to actions and imagery as well. The carousel images tend to do a lot better than just a single image for us. And just making sure that imagery, if, again, I mentioned before, whatever is on that image actually ties back to either the whole website theme and look, or a certain landing page, or I guess type of feeling we're going for. We've used a platform called WooBox quite a few times for either running competitions or getting more data from our database as well. Because you can, I'm not sure if I'm sure some of you have used it before, but it's a pretty powerful tool used by millions of retailers around the world which is also a great data capture for new customers and existing customers as well.
We're actually testing conversational commerce as well. So we're kind of we're testing like a chatbot. So effectively you can ask it what sofas you've got in black and it shows you, which is good, but it doesn't kind of fit into our sort of luxury ethos. So we're trying to find the way that we can make it part human, part chatbot. But the interesting part about that is that we actually moved on to that just because customers started to text us. So they could be, can you just send me some images of the new sort of sofas you've got? Like I said, we've got a very high-end demographic of customer, and you have to kind of work on their timescale. So sometimes an email just won't receive them because they're too busy. They're getting on their private jet or wherever they're going. But they have to, you have to be able to relate with them. And so that is something we're definitely testing, and how you can work on sort of a chat situation.
Yeah, and this is a really hated word, but influencers have been talked about as sort of the next biggest marketing thing, and generally that's why you'll see a lot of these big brands spending a lot of money to have sort of prevalence on college campuses and things of the like, because they realized they need to start engaging with audiences at a younger age and having people who are brand champions. You had Red Bull who'd be running around during exam time. You had people who were like the Red Bull guys who'd come to the library and like hand out Red Bulls. Mostly it's more about word of mouth, because as soon as a brand hits a selling communication on a channel that you're used to having more of a conversational, friendly, social thing, it feels like someone just interrupted your conversation. So you have to be very careful about suddenly getting into the channels that people are on and communicating on for more social purposes. And you sort of have to sneak in there in a way where you have people who are on those channels and being paid attention to, who are advocates for your brand.
Great. Well, I think it's pretty much time to wrap it up, because we've got the breakout sessions coming. I've got one final question, which will probably have I mean, you've talked about other channels you're testing and trialing, and this is a kind of almost like a one-word answer, right? But if email went off tomorrow, you know, worldwide email servers crash, can't send email for a month, where would you move the budget to? What channel right now? If you were working for All About Brown again, or I don't know, whoever.
Email's entirely gone. Where would I move
You've lost
the
it.
budget?
One word.
Oh, social.
Okay.
Fine.
Well, I mean, social's not specific enough.
What age group?
Okay, all right.
Teen, Snapchat, my generation above, Facebook, baby boomers,
Okay.
DM.
Fine.
I'd get people on the phone, make
Great
them personal
answer.
relationships.
Okay, cool.
I'd be Facebook.
Okay, cool. Anyway, listen, thank you very much. Thanks a lot to Andrew, Jonathan, Katie. It's been really interesting. Thank you so much.